The room fell silent, but not the kind of silence that brought peace. It was the kind that screamed louder than any sound ever could. The kind that curled around your throat and made it impossible to breathe. He stood frozen, his tailored coat stained with blood that wasn't his, at least not physically. She had just whispered one word, one devastating word that changed the temperature in the room, the weight in his chest, the very concept of time. "Papa," she said. It wasn't loud. She barely choked it out. But it ripped through the air like a siren. Michael Lancaster had been called many things in his life: CEO, genius, arrogant, even heartless. But never that. Never Papa. Not from her. Not in this sterile white corridor of St. Mercy's Hospital, where the smell of antiseptic mixed with the scent of regret. The girl standing in front of him didn't shake. She didn't cry. But her eyes were oceans, still and endless, holding memories he didn't know he had helped create. She held a little boy in her arms, no more than 4. The boy was quiet, resting his head on her shoulder, clutching a crumpled drawing in his hand. A red crayon heart with a tall man and a smaller boy. The man had gray hair. The boy had big round eyes. The same eyes staring back at Michael now. His breath caught. His limbs refused to move. The walls, the lights, the distant hum of machines, they all seemed to collapse inward. He blinked, but the image stayed. Her face, that boy, that drawing. And that word. Papa. He wanted to deny it. Wanted to scream that she had the wrong man. That this was a cruel trick. But the past didn't work like that. It didn't need your permission to bleed into the present. The nurse stepped away, sensing something sacred was unfolding. A stillness cloaked the hallway. The girl looked down at her son, brushed his cheek, then lifted her gaze again, directly into Michael's. "I told him his father was brave," she said. "I didn't tell him, he wouldn't remember us." Something in him snapped. Not in anger. Not in clarity. But in some ancient, unspoken place where truth and memory collide. He didn't recognize her name when they paged him. "Visitor for Mr. Lancaster," they said. He was about to cancel the meeting. He never accepted unexpected visitors, but something had pulled him to this floor, to this corridor, to this moment. Now he knew why. Or at least, he thought he did. He tried to speak, but his voice betrayed him. It cracked like dry earth. He wanted to ask her name, but something told him he already knew. He wanted to ask why she came back, but that question answered itself the moment she said Papa. She reached into her coat and slowly pulled out something small, wrapped in a faded handkerchief. Her fingers trembled, not with fear, but with years of restraint finally unraveling. When she unwrapped it, Michael gasped. His own breath recoiled like it had seen a ghost. It was a ring. Not just any ring. The ring. His mother's ring. The one he'd left with a girl years ago on a night he didn't think would matter. It mattered. That night had returned. In the form of a woman with a soft voice and a son who looked too much like him to be coincidence. The boy stirred in her arms, eyes fluttering open. "Is that him, Mama?" the boy asked, pointing. Her eyes welled, but she nodded, just once. "Yes, sweetheart. That's him." The child looked at Michael with quiet wonder. "You're the man from my dreams," he said. Michael's knees buckled, and he caught himself on the edge of a bench. This couldn't be happening. Except it was. His mind began to race, searching for gaps, for logic, for explanations that could dissolve this truth into fiction. But there were none. Just images, her smile in a rain-soaked street, a single kiss beneath flickering lights, the way she'd looked at him like she saw someone worth remembering. And now, this. She took a slow step forward, like crossing a distance made not of space, but of time. She stood only inches from him now. "You once told me," she whispered, "that if I ever needed you, truly needed you, I just had to come back." "And now you're here," he murmured. She nodded. "Yes. But I didn't come for help. I came for him." Michael glanced again at the child, then at the ring, then at the storm of emotion threatening to drown him. "Why now?" he asked. "Because I didn't want him to grow up not knowing the truth," she replied. "Even if the truth breaks us." A sharp sound echoed down the hallway, an alarm from another room, someone else's emergency, but neither of them moved. The world, in that moment, had narrowed to just 3 souls and a silence that said everything. He reached out, slowly, cautiously, and touched the boy's hand. The boy didn't flinch. He smiled, small and trusting. Michael looked up at her again. "I need to understand everything." Her lips trembled, and for the first time since she arrived, she let a single tear fall. "Then come back with me," she said. "To where it all began." And just like that, the past began to pull him back, into the night it all started, into the place where memory and regret were born. He stood up. Silent. Shaking. Because now, the only thing louder than the silence, was the truth. 6 years ago, the city looked different to her. It wasn't because the buildings were taller or the sky any brighter. It was because she was younger, more fragile, more hopeful. Back then, Amelia had arrived in the city with only a suitcase full of second-hand clothes, a heart full of promises from a mother long gone, and the belief that hard work could actually rewrite someone's story. She had found a room barely large enough for a mattress and a window that didn't open. But to her, it was heaven. It meant freedom. It meant maybe, just maybe, she could build a life of her own. Michael Lancaster, on the other hand, was already at the top. Back then, he wasn't just a name in business magazines, he was the name. Young, brilliant, and cold in the way only someone who had nothing left to lose could be. He wasn't known for kindness. His board called him the Ice King behind his back. His assistants lasted days, sometimes hours. He didn't care. All he cared about was winning, because somewhere along the way, he forgot what it felt like to be someone worth loving. They never should have met. But fate didn't care much about logic. It was the night of his cousin's wedding. Michael had shown up late, as usual. He hated these things, family pretending, champagne toasts, strangers hugging him like they remembered him as a boy. He wanted to leave before dessert, but something made him stay. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was fate. Amelia had just been hired as a last-minute waitress for the event. She didn't own heels, so she wore black flats. Her borrowed dress uniform was too long, and the tray she carried trembled slightly with each step. She was careful, quiet, invisible, just the way she liked it. Until she spilled red wine on Michael Lancaster. The tray tipped, glasses shattered, and a splash of burgundy stained the front of his suit like blood. Everyone gasped. She froze. He stood there, expression unreadable, eyes like steel. "I'm so sorry, sir," she stammered. I didn't mean to, please, I'll pay for." "You'll do no such thing," he interrupted. Silence fell. Even the violinist paused mid-note. Michael took a breath. Then, to everyone's shock, including his own, he smiled. "It's just a suit," he said. "I have others." Then he knelt, picked up a glass stem from the floor, and handed it to her gently. In that moment, Amelia saw something flicker behind his cool exterior. Not softness exactly, but humanity. "Thank you," she whispered, stunned. He gave a short nod, then walked away. But later that night, while guests laughed and danced under chandeliers, he found her again, outside, in the rain, trying to dry her soaked dress under the edge of a food truck's awning. She jumped when she saw him. "I thought you left," she said. "I did," he replied. "Then I came back." "Why?" "I don't know." She looked down, unsure of what to say. He pulled off his suit jacket and handed it to her. Here. You're shivering. She didn't take it at first. But when the wind picked up and her teeth started to chatter, she accepted. It smelled like cedar and something faintly like citrus. Clean. Comforting. Too expensive for someone like her to even dream of. I'm Amelia, she said quietly. Michael, he replied. They sat on a bench nearby, neither speaking for a while. The wedding music drifted through the trees. The sound of rain on concrete filled the silence between them. Do you always come back when you say you won't? She asked, smiling. Only when it matters, he said. The words lingered in the air, soft and charged. He glanced at her hands, small, calloused, with a bandage on her thumb. You work hard, he said. She nodded. I don't really have a choice. He didn't press. Something about the way she said it made him feel something he hadn't in years, humility. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. It wasn't flashy, not something he ever wore. It was his mother's. He carried it out of habit, out of guilt, maybe. He held it in his palm for a moment, then looked at her. This was my mother's. She used to say it reminded her that love, real love, survives even the worst winters. Amelia stared at the ring, then at him. It's beautiful. He looked at her, then pressed the ring into her hand. Keep it, he said. Her eyes widened. I can't. Just until your hands aren't shaking anymore, he said softly. They didn't kiss. They didn't exchange numbers. But when they stood, he reached out and tied a red string from his wrist around hers. If you ever need me, he said, and you have nothing else, just show me this. She couldn't speak. She just nodded. Then he walked away. And she never saw him again. Not until 6 years later. Not until her son called him Papa in a hospital hallway that reeked of bleach and long-forgotten promises. And the ring he once gave in a moment of warmth? She had kept it. Every day. Every storm. Every birthday. Every time her son asked, Mama, why don't I have a dad? She looked at the ring. And whispered, because he forgot. But maybe, one day, he'll remember. The apartment was small. Too small for a woman with a growing child and a past too big to fit inside 4 cracked walls and 1 humming fridge. But it was home, at least, it had been. Amelia had made peace with the silence, with the leaky faucet, with the creaking floorboard by the bathroom that always betrayed her every step after midnight. Peace, not comfort. Comfort was for people who had someone waiting for them. She had only Liam. He was 4 now. Talkative, inquisitive, and so full of light it made her wonder if someone had placed a piece of the sun inside him just to keep her warm on the worst days. He didn't ask for much. Just stories. About the man in the suit. The one in the drawing. The one who looked like him but didn't know it yet. Is he real, Mama? Liam asked once, curling up beside her on the worn-out mattress. She hesitated. He was, she said. Maybe he still is. Somewhere. Liam's tiny hand traced the edges of the drawing he'd made earlier that week. The man had a smile in the picture, something Michael Lancaster had rarely worn in real life. But children drew what they wished for, not what they knew. And somehow, Liam always added that red thread bracelet to the man's wrist. A detail she had never spoken aloud. Do you think he dreams about us, too? The boy whispered. She didn't answer. Not because she didn't want to, but because the truth tasted too bitter to say. After that wedding night, Amelia had tried to go on with her life. She'd returned the suit jacket to the front desk of the hotel with a thank you note she never knew if he read. The ring, though. She kept that. First out of curiosity. Then out of comfort. Eventually, out of necessity. There were nights she would hold it like a talisman, a charm against the dark, against the hunger, against the feeling that maybe she'd made everything up. 3 months after that night, she realized she was pregnant. She had no number to call, no name to give at the hospital. She simply wrote "unknown" on the father's line and turned the page. But unknown was not what her heart believed. She knew. She remembered the warmth in his eyes, the quiet gravity in his voice, the way he had seen her not as a waitress or a stain on his suit, but as someone. She didn't chase him. He was a billionaire, a ghost in newspapers, someone you didn't just show up to find. And honestly, a part of her didn't want to be found. She wanted to build something on her own. For her son. For herself. And for a while, she almost did. But life had a way of clawing back its debts. The cafe let her go after downsizing. The daycare raised its rates. Her savings became receipts. The old heater broke, and the landlord stopped answering calls. She began selling cupcakes from her tiny oven. Word spread. Some weeks were good. Most weren't. But the kitchen became her sanctuary. One day, Liam found a shoebox beneath her bed. Inside it was the red string bracelet, faded and frayed, and the ring, still glinting even in the low light. "What are these?" he asked. She took the box gently, cradling it like something alive. "Gifts," she said. "From someone who was once kind to me." Liam studied the ring. "Is he my papa?" She froze. He was only 3 then. How could he know? "Why would you say that?" she asked softly. "Because I see him in my dreams. He looks at me like he knows me." Amelia swallowed the lump rising in her throat. "Maybe he does." That night, after Liam fell asleep, she took out an old sheet of paper and wrote a name she hadn't dared to speak aloud in years. Michael Lancaster. It was a test, really. A whisper against fate. She typed his name into a search engine, expecting to find the same news articles, the same glossy magazine covers. But something else appeared, a news story about a children's hospital charity gala. He was speaking. Publicly. For the first time in years. "I never believed in second chances," he had said in the video. "But I'm starting to think maybe, some things are worth finding your way back to." She'd watched that clip 10 times before sleeping. The next morning, she made the decision. Not because she needed money. Not because she wanted answers. But because one day, her son would grow old enough to know when a story was missing a chapter. She couldn't let him live his whole life wondering if he had been a mistake. She found the address of Lancaster Corporation and mailed a single letter. No return address. No name. Just a child's drawing. The one with the red bracelet. 2 weeks later, a woman showed up at her door. She wore a sleek suit and introduced herself as a representative of the CEO. Amelia's hands went cold. "Mr. Lancaster received your letter," the woman said. "He'd like to know more." Amelia didn't answer right away. She looked at Liam, playing with a puzzle on the floor. "I'll meet him," she said. "But not as a beggar. Not as someone asking for anything." "Understood," the woman replied. "Would you prefer we set a time?" "No," Amelia said. "I'll come when I'm ready." It took another month. Then one morning, Liam caught a fever that wouldn't break. She carried him to the hospital herself. Waited 6 hours. He clung to her shirt the whole time, whispering, "Mama, it hurts." And just when she thought she might break down in the hallway, she saw a name on the plaque above the children's wing. Michael Lancaster Foundation, Pediatric Care Center. The world tilted. She walked to the receptionist and asked for him. They paged someone. 10 minutes later, the elevator doors opened. And there he was. Older. More tired. Still beautiful in that heartbreaking, unreachable way. His eyes found hers, and didn't know what they were seeing. Until Liam stirred and looked up at the man he'd drawn 100 times. "Papa," the boy whispered. And just like that, the story could no longer stay silent. The hospital corridor was quiet again. Too quiet. As if even the walls were holding their breath. Michael hadn't moved. He stood there as if frozen in time, the word Papa echoing through him like a scream in an empty cathedral. His hands trembled, not enough for anyone else to notice, but enough for him to feel the tremor all the way to the center of his chest. Amelia hadn't spoken since. She simply stood there, eyes steady but unflinching, like she knew this would be the moment that either healed or destroyed them. The boy in her arms leaned against her shoulder again, already falling back into sleep, unaware of the avalanche he triggered. Michael tried to form words. I don't understand. I know, she said gently. He gestured toward a nearby bench. Can we sit? They moved in silence. Michael sat at the edge of the bench, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. Amelia lowered Liam gently onto her lap, brushing a hand through his curls. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. I think I know you, he finally said, voice low, as if afraid the truth might break if spoken too loudly. You do, she said. He looked up slowly, his eyes searching her face. From where? Her lips curved into something between sorrow and a smile. From a night you said you wouldn't forget, but did. Michael blinked. And then she did something that made his blood run cold. She unwrapped her scarf and held up her wrist. The red string bracelet. Frayed. Soft with time. But unmistakable. Michael stared at it like it was a ghost. His breath caught. I tied that. 6 years ago, she said, nodding. Outside a hotel kitchen. In the rain. Michael's mind reeled backward. He could see it now, flashes of her smile, the way she trembled when he handed her his coat, the warmth of her hand as he pressed his mother's ring into her palm. He remembered thinking he would never forget her. And yet, he had. What happened to me, he whispered. Why didn't I remember? She looked at him, long and steady. Maybe you didn't want to. Or maybe, the life you were building didn't have space for something like that. The words hit harder than they should have. Because they were true. Michael had spent the last 6 years clawing his way into corporate history, burying every soft part of himself under deals, deadlines, and dividends. Somewhere along the way, he had started measuring people by usefulness, love by efficiency, memory by whether it cost him anything. And now, he was paying. My God, he muttered. He's mine. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The boy stirred in her lap again and opened his eyes. He looked up at Michael, tilted his head, and smiled. Are you sad? Michael blinked back the sting. A little, buddy. Yeah. Don't be, Liam said. Mama says being kind makes the sadness go away. Michael turned his face away, just for a second, just long enough to wipe the corner of his eye with the sleeve of $1,000 shirt that suddenly felt like it didn't belong to him at all. Does he know about me? He asked. Amelia nodded. Only what I could tell him. That you were once kind to a stranger who didn't deserve your time. And that sometimes, people disappear not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to stay. Michael's throat tightened. You should have told me. She looked at him with a quiet sadness. I tried. In the only way I could. He shook his head, trying to piece it together. The drawing. The letter. That was from him. She nodded. I helped him draw the man he sees in his dreams. The one with gray hair and kind eyes. Michael gave a short, broken laugh. Kind. Me. To him. Yes. Silence again. Michael rubbed his palms together. Where have you been? All these years? Everywhere you weren't, she said softly. I raised him the best I could. I never asked for help. Not even when it got really hard. I would have helped, he said automatically. Would you? She asked. Not cruelly. Just, honestly. He didn't answer. Because deep down, he wasn't sure. She took a breath and looked down at Liam. I didn't come back for money, Michael. I didn't even come back for you. Then why? She met his gaze. Because one day, I realized it wasn't about me. Or you. It was about him. And I didn't want him to grow up thinking he wasn't wanted. Even if I had to face the man who forgot me. Michael's heart cracked. The weight of it was unbearable. The shame, the guilt, the knowledge that somewhere in his pursuit of greatness, he had left behind the one thing that could have saved him. Do you hate me? He asked. No, she said simply. I used to. But hate is too heavy. I had Liam. That was enough. Michael reached into his coat pocket, fumbled, and pulled out his wallet. From it, he retrieved something he hadn't touched in years, a folded photograph, half worn at the edges. It was a picture of his mother, smiling, with a ring on her hand. He held it out to her. You still have it? He asked. She pulled the ring from her coat pocket and placed it gently beside the photo. He stared at it. I gave that to you as a joke. No, she said. You gave it to me as a promise. You just forgot to keep it. Michael leaned back against the bench, staring at the hospital ceiling. What happens now? I don't know, she admitted. I didn't come with a plan. I only came to give my son a face for the name he dreamed about. Michael looked at Liam, now asleep again, mouth slightly open, hand clutched around the corner of his coat. I missed everything, he said. First steps. First words. I wasn't there. No, she agreed. But you're here now. He looked at her. Does that mean anything? It means everything, she said. If you don't waste it. Michael took a breath like it hurt to breathe. Because maybe it did. Then, without thinking, he reached out and rested his hand gently on Liam's. The boy didn't flinch. Papa, he murmured again in his sleep. Michael closed his eyes. He didn't know what came next. But he knew what had to come first. He had to remember. Everything. The invitation came 3 days later. Handwritten. Delivered in a white envelope that carried no logo, no seal, just his name, Michael Lancaster, scribbled in familiar, slanted handwriting. Amelia hadn't signed it. She didn't have to. The message was simple: if you're serious, meet me where it started. Michael stood under the canopy of string lights outside the old hotel where his cousin's wedding had been held all those years ago. The place hadn't changed much. The ivy still crept up the brick walls. The fountain in the courtyard still trickled the same broken rhythm. But something about the place felt smaller now. Less grand. Or maybe it was him who had changed. He checked his watch. It was almost 7. The same time he'd first seen her that night, drenched in rain, apologizing for the wine she spilled on his suit. He remembered the way her voice had trembled, not from fear, but from exhaustion. He hadn't understood it then, but now it haunted him. The door opened behind him. Light spilled out. And then she stepped into view. No makeup. No dress. Just jeans, a wool coat, and the same cautious gaze she'd worn in the hospital. She walked with a quiet purpose, like someone who knew the weight of her own footsteps. Her hair was pulled back, a few strands falling free in the wind. She carried nothing but a small, worn notebook pressed to her chest. I didn't think you'd come, she said. I almost didn't, he admitted. What changed your mind? He looked at her for a long time. He said my name in his sleep last night. Amelia's expression softened. She joined him near the fountain, not too close, but close enough for him to feel the warmth of her presence again. I've thought about this place 1,000 times, he said quietly. But I never came back. I didn't think I deserved to. She nodded slowly. Maybe none of us deserve anything. Maybe life just gives us moments, and it's up to us whether we show up. A beat of silence. I wasn't ready, he whispered. Back then. I know, she said. He looked at her notebook. What's that? She hesitated, then offered it to him. It's for Liam, she said. I started writing it the night I found out I was pregnant. Letters. Pages. Drawings. Things I thought he might want to know. About me. About you. About the night we met. He held it like it was something sacred. The cover was frayed, the pages dog-eared. Why give it to me now? Because now, you might actually read it, she replied. He opened to a random page. The handwriting was rushed but legible. One sentence leapt from the paper. Today Liam asked me if the stars could hear him. I told him yes. Because someone has to. Michael's throat tightened. He closed the notebook and looked up at her. May I see him again? He asked. She studied him for a moment. He's been asking for you. A pause. I don't know what this is, he continued. What we're doing. What I'm doing. But I want to know him. Not as some stranger with a last name he doesn't understand, but as his father. You don't get to just step in and be that, she said, but there was no malice in her tone. He's not a title. He's a person. I know, Michael said. That's why I'm not asking to be called anything. I'm just asking to show up. She considered that. You'd really be there. On the hard days? I've had every kind of power and none of it has ever made me feel smaller than when I realized I'd missed his first smile. The wind shifted. A leaf fluttered between them, catching briefly on her boot before skimming across the pavement. He likes chocolate milk before bed, she said softly. Hates loud noises. Sleeps with a stuffed bear that's missing one eye. And he asks a lot of questions. Like, more than any child I've ever met. Michael smiled, something real this time. That sounds terrifying. It is. They both laughed, quietly, like the echo of something they used to know. She looked at him, her eyes searching. Why now? I don't know, he said truthfully. Maybe because I finally realized all the things I've built mean nothing if I can't look a child in the eye and say I stayed. She took a step closer. Just one. You're not the man I met in the rain, she said. He was softer. But also more afraid. He tilted his head. And who am I now? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out the red string bracelet. I kept this, she said, because it reminded me that even the most powerful people can make a promise and mean it, even if they forget. Michael reached out and gently took it from her hand. I didn't forget the promise, he whispered. I just forgot who I was when I made it. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The wind rustled the ivy. Somewhere in the distance, a car horn broke the silence, but it faded quickly. Then Amelia said something so soft, he almost missed it. He still calls you Papa, she said. Michael swallowed hard. Do you want him to stop? She shook her head. No. I want you to earn it. He looked down at the bracelet, then tied it to his wrist again. Then I will. And this time, he meant it. The next time Michael saw Liam, it wasn't in a hospital or a dream. It was a Tuesday afternoon, outside a modest preschool with peeling blue paint and a fence covered in paper sunflowers. The kind of place Michael had never imagined himself standing in front of, not because it was beneath him, but because it had never even existed in his world. Amelia had texted him the time and place. No words beyond the address and, if you're serious, be early. So he was. For the first time in years, Michael arrived 15 minutes early and waited. No phone. No assistant. Just him, a folded piece of paper in his coat pocket, and a knot in his stomach he hadn't felt since childhood. Then the doors opened, and the children poured out in a burst of laughter and backpacks. Michael scanned the crowd, heart pounding. And then, he saw him. Liam came skipping down the steps, holding a paper crown in one hand and dragging a stuffed bear in the other. His hair was messy, his shoes slightly untied, but his face lit up when he spotted Amelia near the gate. Michael stayed a few paces back. Watching. Wanting. Amelia crouched down, kissed Liam's forehead, and pointed toward Michael without saying a word. Liam turned slowly. And smiled. He ran, not to Michael, but near him, stopping just short. Like he was waiting for permission. Michael knelt. "Hey there," he said, voice unsure. Liam studied him. "You came." "I did." The boy looked at his paper crown, then back at Michael. "You want to see what I made?" Michael nodded. "I'd love to." Liam reached into his backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He opened it carefully. Crayon drawings, 3 stick figures, a woman with brown hair, a man with gray, and a little boy between them holding both their hands. "I didn't draw your nose right," Liam said seriously. "It's harder than I thought." Michael laughed, a sound that surprised even himself. "You got the eyes perfect." Liam beamed. Then, without hesitation, he reached out and handed the bear to Michael. "His name's Captain. You can hold him if you want." Michael blinked. "I can." Liam nodded. "He makes you brave." Michael took the bear with hands that suddenly felt too big and too unworthy. "Thanks, Captain." Amelia stepped closer but said nothing. She was watching too, watching both of them like she was afraid one of them might disappear if she blinked. They walked together to a nearby cafe. Nothing fancy. Plastic chairs, squeaky floors, a waitress who greeted Amelia like a regular. Michael had never ordered chocolate milk before. But when Liam asked the server for 2, one for me, one for him, he didn't argue. He just said, "Make it 2. Liam talked a lot. About school. About bugs. About how he thought clouds were just really slow pillows. And the entire time, Michael listened, not the way businessmen listen in boardrooms, calculating value, but the way fathers listen when they're hearing their own heartbeat for the first time. At one point, Amelia excused herself to take a call, leaving Michael and Liam alone at the table. "Do you like bears?" Liam asked suddenly. "I do now," Michael said. "Do you have a mama?" Michael hesitated. "I did. She's gone now." Liam nodded solemnly, the way only children can nod, like they understand everything and nothing at once. "My mama says people leave sometimes, even if they don't mean to." "She's right," Michael replied. "But sometimes, they come back." Liam took a sip of his milk, then looked up. "Did you come back for me?" Michael felt something shift inside him, like a lock being turned. "I did," he said. "And I'll keep coming back. Every time." When Amelia returned, she found the two of them deep in conversation, leaning over a paper napkin as Liam drew yet another version of their family, this time, with Captain Bear in the center. Later, outside the cafe, Amelia pulled Michael aside as Liam played with a leaf on the sidewalk. "He likes you," she said. Michael looked over at the boy. "I like him more than I know how to explain. He doesn't understand the weight of all this yet," she said softly. "But I do." Michael turned to her. "Then tell me what you need." She paused. "Consistency. Honesty. No promises you can't keep. No disappearing acts." "You'll get all of that," he said. She searched his face, looking for cracks. "This isn't just about showing up at school pickups and drawing napkin pictures. It's doctor visits. Nightmares. Questions you won't have answers for. It's birthdays and scraped knees and awkward school plays." Michael nodded. "And I'll be there for every one." She crossed her arms. You know, if you'd said all this to me 6 years ago, I might have believed it was just your charm. I didn't have charm, he said. She laughed. No. You had a lot of money and a good jawline. But charm? Not really. He smiled. And now? Now, she said, you're starting to sound like a man who finally sees what matters. Liam ran back to them then, waving a leaf like it was a flag. Mama. He said he'll come to my art show next week. Can he, really? Amelia looked at Michael. Can you? I'll cancel the world, he said. Just tell me where to be. She nodded slowly. Okay then. And for the first time in years, she believed him. They walked away together. Not hand in hand. Not as lovers or even as a family yet. But as something new. Something healing. Something beginning. The office was quiet long after everyone had gone home. The hallway lights dimmed automatically at 8 p.m., and the city skyline outside the glass walls shimmered in soft gold, bleeding into the corners of Michael's penthouse suite like memories he hadn't asked to remember. But tonight, something pulled him to stay. His desk was still cluttered from the day, documents for acquisition deals, legal folders, annual forecasts, but his eyes weren't on any of them. They were fixed on the single object he'd placed in the center of his desk just an hour ago. The red string bracelet. He had taken it off earlier, intending to put it away, somewhere safe, maybe. A keepsake. A reminder. But the moment it left his wrist, he felt as if something real, something warm and breathing, had gone silent. So now it sat there, pulsing in his mind like a heartbeat. He rubbed his temples. His chest ached, not from exhaustion, not from any ailment his doctor could diagnose, but from something deeper. Something ancient. He reached into the drawer and pulled out a file his assistant had dropped off earlier that day. Amelia's full employment file. He didn't ask for it. But he didn't stop it from coming either. Inside were a few standard forms, her emergency contact info, past job references, nothing dramatic. Except a page tucked into the back. A letter of recommendation from a bakery she used to work at. Written in messy, slanted ink. The last line froze him. She once stood outside the kitchen window every day for a week, hoping we'd let her help just for tips. Never gave up. Never took more than she earned. She left quietly, but the air changed when she did. Michael sat back in his chair. She had lived in the same city, under the same sky, walking its streets with his child in her arms, and he never noticed. He pulled out his phone. Scrolled to her contact. Paused. Then set it down. He wasn't ready to call. Not until he knew everything. Not until he remembered everything. Suddenly, a memory returned, not dramatic, not sharp, but soft. Gentle. It was the way she looked at the ring when he gave it to her. Not with greed, not even with surprise, but with reverence, like someone who had never been trusted with something valuable before. It hadn't meant anything to him then. But now, it did. He got up. Walked to the bookshelf. Opened a lower drawer. Inside was a box, old and covered in dust, filled with remnants from another life, his mother's diary, some photos, and a worn cassette tape he never played. But beneath it all, a photo had slid loose. Michael picked it up. And his breath caught. It was a candid photo, blurry at the edges, but it was her. Amelia. 6 years younger. Standing outside that hotel, in the rain. Holding his suit jacket over her head. Laughing. Looking directly into the lens. It was taken from inside a car. His car. His driver must have snapped it before they pulled away. Michael remembered now. He had looked back. He had asked for that photo. Because something about her felt important. And then, he had forgotten. Or maybe, he'd buried it. His phone buzzed suddenly, yanking him back. It was his assistant. "Sir, sorry to disturb this late. But we found something odd in the archives. You asked for anything connected to that gala 6 years ago, correct?" "Yes. We received security footage from the ballroom's exterior camera. There's a frame at 11:42 p.m., a woman slipping out the side door with something in her hands. A bottle of wine. She looks like..." The voice trailed off. "Like her?" Michael asked. "Yes. And you're following right behind her. I thought you should see it yourself." He ended the call and sat down again, adrenaline pulsing now. He opened the email with the footage. Clicked play. The screen flickered. Black and white. Then the timestamp. 11 hours 42 minutes and 7 seconds. There she was, Amelia, holding a bottle, trying to shield it from the rain. She looked back, laughing, and then Michael, chasing after her. They were both soaked, but smiling. He paused the video. Zoomed in. His hand was extended, gently tugging at the red string bracelet on her wrist. He whispered something. The footage had no sound, but Michael suddenly heard the memory in his bones. "If you ever get lost, just pull this. And I'll find you." He had said it. And then he had disappeared. Michael stood up so quickly his chair slammed against the wall. His heart pounded, not from the memory, but from the truth unraveling at last. He had loved her. Back then. Even if he didn't understand it. Even if he didn't stay long enough to call it by its name. His phone buzzed again. This time, a text. From Amelia. Liam asked if you remember the song. No context. No explanation. Michael stared at the message like it was written in another language. Then it hit him. He rushed to the living room, to the old record player that hadn't been touched in years. There were only a few vinyls left, most still in plastic. But one sleeve was open. The record already inside. He placed the needle gently. The music began. A soft piano. Then a female voice, warm and distant. Somewhere only we know. It was the song that played from the food truck speaker the night they met. They had laughed about it, both admitting they didn't even like the genre, but somehow, it had stayed with them. She remembered. Liam remembered. And now, so did he. He picked up his phone, hands shaking. I remember. He hit send. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel lost. He felt found. Not by the world. But by the one person who had waited. Quietly. Faithfully. With a red string tied gently around her wrist, hoping he'd one day pull it again. Michael didn't wait another day. He couldn't. The memories had come back, not all at once, but in waves, each one more vivid than the last. He remembered the way her voice had cracked when she laughed too hard. The way her fingers had brushed against his when he handed her that jacket. The scent of her hair in the rain. The way she had whispered thank you like no one had ever thanked him before. But more than that, he remembered the way he had walked away. And now, he couldn't unsee it. The next morning, he found himself standing outside a modest two-story walk-up in a quiet neighborhood lined with crooked fences and blooming jasmine. It was the address from the school form. He hadn't told her he was coming. He didn't know if he should. But the truth couldn't wait any longer, not when it was pulsing inside him like something alive. He knocked. Footsteps. Then the door opened. Amelia stood there, barefoot, hair still damp from a shower. She wore a worn sweatshirt, one sleeve tugged down to her palm. Her face shifted when she saw him, surprise first, then confusion, then something deeper. A fear he didn't deserve to see. Michael? I remember, he said. She didn't respond. He took a step closer. The night at the hotel. The wine. The jacket. The bracelet. Your laugh. The rain. I remember all of it. She said nothing. And I remember what I said, he continued. That if you ever got lost, just pull the string and I'd find you. And you did, Amelia. You pulled it. Her fingers gripped the edge of the door tighter. Why are you here? To tell you the truth. You already did. You forgot me. No, he said, shaking his head. I buried you. There's a difference. Her jaw clenched. Michael. I wasn't ready to be a father, he said quickly, before she could shut the door. Not then. Maybe I still don't know how. But I am ready to tell you everything. Because you deserve more than apologies. You deserve truth. She didn't move, but she didn't close the door either. I found a photo, he said softly. My driver took it the night I left. You were laughing in the rain. I had asked him to take it. Because I knew I'd want to remember you. Then why didn't you? She asked, finally. Why did you vanish? Because I thought love would slow me down, he admitted. I thought success needed space. And then I got everything I wanted, except the one thing that had meaning. She turned slightly, her body half in shadow. You're 6 years too late. I know. And he doesn't need a father who shows up only when it's convenient. I'm not here because it's convenient, he said. I'm here because I finally understand what it means to stay. She stepped back into the hallway and picked something up off the console table, Liam's drawing. The one with the stick figures, the red bracelet, the crayon-sketched house. He keeps drawing you, she whispered. Even before you came back, he drew you. Always with the bracelet. Always with a smile. Michael swallowed hard. Do you want to know why I never told you? She asked. Yes. Because I was afraid. Her voice broke. Not of you. Of what it would mean to hope again. I couldn't risk letting him believe in something that might disappear the moment it became real. He took another step. Then let me prove it's real. She shook her head. You think just remembering changes everything? No, he said, voice low. I think what I do next changes everything. Amelia glanced down the hall. He's napping. I don't need to see him, Michael said. I came for you. The words landed with weight. Not romance. Not desperation. But truth. And then, as if the universe needed no further permission, a small voice called from the hallway. Mama? Amelia turned. Yes, baby. I had the dream again. Michael felt his heart twist. Amelia turned back to him. He's been having the same dream for months. You're in it. You hold his hand and tell him he's safe. And every time, he wakes up crying because he thinks it's not true. Michael closed his eyes. I want to make it true, he whispered. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked down the hall and came back carrying Liam, still blinking sleep from his eyes. He saw Michael and instantly reached for the stuffed bear on the table. Captain was scared, he said groggily. Michael knelt. I was scared too. Liam stared at him. Did you dream about me too? Michael nodded. Every night since I met you. Liam rubbed his eyes, then, without warning, walked over and wrapped his arms around Michael's neck. You can come to the park with us tomorrow, he mumbled. Captain said it's okay. Michael held still, barely breathing. His arms slowly folded around the boy, carefully, as if holding something too sacred to press too tightly. And over the little boy's shoulder, he met Amelia's eyes. She didn't smile. But she didn't stop him either. Later, as they sat together on the old couch, Liam asleep across both their laps, Michael pulled something from his pocket, a letter. I wrote this to you, he said, handing it to her. 6 years ago. I never sent it. I found it yesterday behind a drawer in my desk. Amelia opened it slowly, hands trembling. If I ever forget this night, I pray something in me remembers the way she looked at me, like I was worth something. Like I could be more. Like I already was. Her eyes glistened. I did forget, he said. But something in me still remembered. She closed the letter and held it to her chest. And in that quiet moment, with Liam breathing softly, and nothing but the hum of the refrigerator in the background, Michael reached for her hand. She let him. No promises were spoken. No futures were planned. But something passed between them. Forgiveness. Maybe. Or just, the beginning of it. The city moved on outside his window, horns, sirens, laughter, heels against pavement. But inside Michael's penthouse, it was just him and the quiet. The kind of quiet that scraped at your thoughts and filled the room with all the things you hadn't said. Liam had fallen asleep hours ago. Michael had tucked him into the guest bedroom, the same room he used to store unopened whiskey bottles and forgotten awards. Now, it smelled like baby shampoo and crayons. A small blanket with cartoon rockets was draped over the foot of the bed. A half-finished puzzle lay on the floor. The boy had made himself at home in the way only children could, without asking permission, without apology. Michael sat at the edge of the hallway, back against the wall, staring into the space between night and morning. Amelia had gone home. She hadn't said why. She hadn't needed to. There was something too fragile about the way they left things, like speaking too much would shatter the progress they'd made. And now, he was alone. Not because she'd abandoned him, but because he finally understood what it meant to be left behind. He'd done it to her. For 6 years. He looked down at his hands. Once, they'd signed billion-dollar deals. Moved empires. Crushed competitors. But tonight, they were just the hands of a man who missed bedtime stories and scraped knees. The hands of someone who didn't know how to braid a child's hair or fix a toy spaceship, but would trade everything to learn. He stood up and walked into his study. On the desk was Liam's latest drawing, crayon scribbles of a house with crooked windows and a giant sun wearing sunglasses. There were 3 figures in the yard. One was labeled Mama, the other me, and the last, him. Underneath, in jagged letters, Liam had written. This time, he stayed. Michael sank into the leather chair, eyes burning. How do you make up for time you can't get back? How do you apologize to a child for not being there when he needed someone to read him to sleep? He picked up his phone. Opened the voice recorder. Then stopped. No. Not this time. No messages. No written notes. He needed to show up, not in pixels or paragraphs, but in person. The next morning, he dressed before sunrise. No suit. No tie. Just jeans, a sweatshirt, and the red string bracelet still tied to his wrist. Liam was still asleep when Michael scribbled a note, gone to see someone important. Be back by breakfast. And left it by the boy's bedside. The streets were still dark when he pulled up outside Amelia's apartment. He didn't call. He didn't knock. He waited. And when the light in her kitchen finally flickered on, he stepped out of the car and walked to her door. She opened it slowly, bathrobe cinched tightly around her waist, hair tousled from sleep. You're here early, she said. I couldn't sleep. She nodded, not inviting him in, but not closing the door either. I didn't come to ask for anything, he said. Not today. Then why are you here? To say something I should have said the day we met. She leaned against the doorway. Go on. I've spent my life chasing things I thought would make me whole. Power. Respect. Silence. But nothing ever did. Nothing lasted. He paused. Until you. Until him. Amelia crossed her arms. Michael. No, let me finish. She stayed quiet. I didn't forget you because you weren't important. I forgot because I didn't believe I deserved anything that real. I saw you as a moment, one perfect moment, and I convinced myself it couldn't be more. I ran before I had the chance to feel what it meant to stay. And now, I've felt it. Every single night since the hospital. And I don't want to run anymore. She looked away. Words are easy. I know. That's why I didn't come with words. He reached into his pocket and handed her a folded paper. She opened it, confused at first, then stunned. It was a deed. To a house. A small, modest place on the edge of the city. A garden. A yard. 2 bedrooms. I'm not buying you, he said. I'm offering you something you've never had. A home. A choice. Amelia's throat tightened. And if I say no, then I'll still come to every art show. Every school recital. I'll sit in the back if that's what you want. I'll bring chocolate milk and ask nothing in return. But I'll never stop showing up. Because now, I know what I missed. She looked at him, really looked at him. And for the first time, saw the man beneath the suits. Tired. Raw. But real. I don't need a house, she said. I know. I need someone who won't vanish the moment life gets complicated. I won't, he said. I swear. She folded the paper and held it against her chest. You can come in, she said softly. Just for coffee. He stepped inside. Not as a stranger. Not as a billionaire. But as a man who had finally come home. The park wasn't anything special. A few rusted swings, a sandbox dotted with forgotten plastic shovels, and a tired bench beneath a willow tree that had seen better decades. But for Liam, it was magic. He ran across the grass like he owned the earth, his stuffed bear swinging from one hand, his laughter breaking open the morning like sunlight through heavy clouds. Michael sat on the bench, watching his son. His son. He still wasn't used to the word. It didn't roll off his tongue yet, not with ease, not without guilt. But it lived inside his chest now, buried somewhere between hope and repentance. Amelia sat beside him, sipping from a paper cup, the same kind they used to hand out at weddings and cold street corners. She wore her hair loose today, and her coat looked too thin for the early chill in the air. Michael shrugged off his jacket and draped it around her shoulders without a word. She didn't protest. They watched Liam together in a silence that felt earned. The kind of silence that only comes when there's nothing left to prove, just presence, steady and warm. He draws you every day now, Amelia said, her voice low. Michael smiled faintly. I saw the one with the cape. I'm not sure I deserve that kind of heroism. You showed up. You stayed. That makes you a superhero in his eyes. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. You know, every time I open my mouth around him, I worry I'll say the wrong thing. Like there's a checklist of what a father is supposed to be, and I missed the first 100 lessons. She turned toward him. The only lesson that matters is this: he looks for you now. Not as a mystery. As you. Michael glanced at Liam, now balancing on a low rock like a tightrope walker. I still don't know how to fix what I broke, he whispered. Amelia took a breath. You don't have to fix the past. Just be part of what comes next. The words settled between them like an open door. Is this forgiveness? He asked. No, she said softly. This is something harder. He looked at her. This is trust. A long pause passed. Then Michael nodded. I can live with that. Liam came running back then, cheeks flushed, hands full of dandelions. He shoved one into Michael's hand, then reached for Amelia. These are wishes, he said proudly. Michael looked at the crushed petals in his palm. And what did you wish for? Liam grinned. I can't tell you. It won't come true. Amelia laughed, tucking a bloom behind her ear. Liam turned to his father. Can we go see the house now? The one with the big tree. Michael looked at Amelia. She nodded once. I'd like that, he said to Liam. Maybe we can plant something there. A tree. Something that stays. Liam clapped. Yes. One that grows bigger than the roof. Michael stood and lifted the boy into his arms, holding him close like he'd never get the chance again. Maybe that was the secret, loving like every moment was the last one you'd get. They walked toward the car, the three of them. No dramatic declarations. No final speeches. Just the quiet steps of people walking together. A man who once forgot. A woman who waited. And a boy who believed in dreams and dandelions and second chances. And as they crossed the edge of the park, a breeze stirred the leaves above them, and for a moment, the world felt rewritten. Not by what had been lost, but by everything they had finally chosen to find again. And this time, they stayed.